Hey guys, welcome back to more r/entitledparents Reddit stories. In today's Ripe Stories video, some mothers want their kids to be happy, but mine made it her personal mission to ensure that I was completely alone. She manipulated my partners, played the victim, and tried to ruin my life. Here is how I escaped this toxic, entitled narcissist. Let's dive right into the video. And the first one is an r/entitledparents story, and it is titled, "My entitled toxic mother left our wedding because it was not sufficiently about her." So when I, 31 female, had my wedding 5 years ago, we decided to host it at my wife's, 31 female, mother's house. We dressed up the garden and it looked magical. We were able to have a stunning garden wedding with about 100 guests relatively cheaply. On the big day, while getting set up, my EM was buzzing around, making a complete nuisance of herself, trying to change how tables were arranged and allocated and bothering my wife and I while we were getting ready for the ceremony. Our friend, who was the unofficial manager of the wedding, was doing his best to keep her satiated while also keeping her from bothering the brides. When it came time to speeches, I made mention of people who specifically helped and people who were a part of the wedding party, and my sister was mentioned as she was part of the wedding party, and my mother-in-law was mentioned for partially funding the wedding and hosting it at her house, investing a lot of time and effort. In the end, my EM did not get mentioned because she did not help, but rather hindered us and was honestly never done anything to support us. And when it became clear she was not getting mentioned, her family started shouting at me from across the garden, reminding me to mention my mother. Out of surprise and shock, I made a quick mention, but I honestly had no idea what to even say. It just made no sense to me to mention her. Shortly after, she left in tears and she took her entire extended family with her, about 1/4 of the guests. Most of them didn't even say goodbye. It was a devastating amount of drama for what should be a magical day. My dad handled it well and comforted us both. They are now divorced. I don't regret not mentioning her even a little bit. All it did was highlight that she cannot be trusted to participate in our lives in any important or meaningful way. The relationship has never been the same since, especially since she outright refused to apologize to my wife, even trying to compare her behavior with my wife being withdrawn at her family gatherings, since for some reason the entire extended family tends to pretend she does not exist. Totally bizarre, and I'm glad my wife still loves me so much despite my insane mother. And the next one is an absolutely insane entitled parent story, which is titled, "Mom ruined my relationships for years, and now she is trying to destroy my wedding." And by the way guys, if you enjoy these stories about entitled parents, crazy mother-in-laws, and in general family drama, please don't forget to like the video because that would help me tremendously. Thank you so much. So my mom is a textbook narcissist. Growing up, I endured years of toxic abuse from her. It was not the kind of abuse that leaves physical marks on you, it was the kind of deep emotional manipulation that messes with your head for years. She treated me like an extension of herself, a retirement plan, an emotional punching bag all rolled into one. Whenever I achieved something, she took all the credit. If I got a good grade, it was because she was such a dedicated parent. If I got a job, it was because she taught me good work ethic, but the moment I showed any independence or had a thought of my own, I was branded as an ungrateful child who was breaking her heart. She constantly held the fact that she raised me over my head. According to her logic, feeding and housing a child she chose to bring into the world was a massive favor that I had to repay for the rest of my life. I spent my childhood walking on eggshells, trying to keep her happy and internalizing the guilt she constantly fed me. I worked blue-collar jobs as soon as I was old enough to just get out of the house. I saved every penny I made, and I eventually bought myself an old double-decker boat. I spent my weekends sanding, welding, and redecking it completely with my own 2 hands. I used it as my personal escape, and that boat became my sanctuary. Naturally, my mom called it a massive waste of money, at least until she realized she could take pictures on it and brag to her friends about her successful son. For years, my mom made it her personal mission to ensure that I never had anyone in my life who was more important than her. I didn't realize what she was doing until I was much older. I just assumed I had terrible luck with women, but it turns out my mom had been actively ruining all my relationships for years. I had a serious girlfriend a few years back and my mom played the role of the sweet, welcoming parent perfectly. She got my girlfriend's phone number under the guise of wanting to share recipes and stay in touch. And then the manipulation started. My mom would call her crying, claiming I was ignoring her and that I had severe anger problems. She would tell my girlfriend that I was financially unstable, even though I was doing great and owned my boat free and clear. My mom would plant these tiny seeds of doubt, telling my girlfriend that I was not the marrying type and that I would eventually abandon her. And it actually worked. That relationship ended in a massive, confusing argument where my girlfriend accused me of hiding my true personality. A couple years later, I dated another woman and my mother used a different tactic. She became overly critical and mean, constantly picking at this poor girl's appearance, her job, her family, and so on. My mom would say awful things and then claim she was just joking and that my girlfriend was too sensitive. Behind the scenes though, my mom would text her saying I was planning to break up with her and that she was just trying to spare her feelings. Well, what can I say? That relationship crumbled too. I was left heartbroken and completely unaware that the call was coming from inside the house. Then I met the woman who is now my wife, and my wife is incredible. She is smart, she communicates directly, and she does not tolerate drama. When I introduced her to my mother, I was nervous. As expected, my mom immediately tried her usual tactics. During our first dinner together, my mom tried to give my wife a backhanded compliment about her outfit, implying it looked cheap. My wife just smiled and thanked her, completely deflecting the insult. My mom hated that she could not get a reaction. A few weeks later, my mom managed to get my wife's phone number, and the sabotage attempt began. My mom sent a long text to my wife, and she told my wife that I was very difficult to deal with and that I could be very selfish. She said she knew me better than anyone and just did not want my wife to get hurt when I inevitably changed my mind about her. My wife didn't reply to her. Instead, she took a screenshot of the message and showed it to me immediately, and I felt sick to my stomach. Everything suddenly clicked and I realized this is exactly what she had been doing to every woman I'd ever dated before. We confronted my mom the very next day and I walked into her house and laid it all out. I know exactly what you've been doing. I told her plainly. You sent my girlfriend a text telling her I was gonna leave her. You did this to my last girlfriend too, didn't you? My mom put on the performance of a lifetime and she started sobbing uncontrollably. I'm just a concerned mom looking out for her son, she cried out loudly. You're breaking my heart. How can you choose a stranger over your own flesh and blood? She's not a stranger, I replied. She's my partner, and if you ever contact her behind my back again, I will cut you out of my life permanently. After everything I've done for you? She yelled back. I raised you, I sacrificed my life for you. You owe me some respect. I didn't back down though. I told her the disrespect was coming from her end and that my boundaries were non-negotiable, and she agreed to stop, but she held a massive grudge. From that point on, I severely limited my contact with her, but out of some misplaced sense of familial duty, I kept her in my life. Fast forward a bit and I proposed to my wife on my boat. It was a beautiful private moment and we were thrilled. When we announced our engagement, my mom gave a fake cheer and immediately started talking about what she was gonna wear. When it came time to plan the wedding, my wife and I decided we wanted something small, intimate, and unique. We didn't want to spend thousands of dollars on a venue. Since my boat could already comfortably hold about 25 people, we just decided to have the ceremony and the reception right there on the water. It was cost effective and it meant something special to us. When I told my mom about the plan, she threw an absolute fit. She demanded we book a massive church and reception hall. You cannot get married on a boat, she yelled over the phone. What will my friends think? It looks cheap. You're embarrassing me. I deserve to have a proper wedding to invite my friends to. It's not your wedding, I told her. We are doing it our way. You are being incredibly selfish, she snapped before slamming the phone down. And well, for the next several months, my wife and I planned everything ourselves. We ordered drop-off catering from our favorite local spot, set up a heavy-duty portable PA system on the deck for music, and bought all the decorations. My mom, of course, didn't lift a single finger. She didn't contribute a single dollar. She didn't help us pick out food. She didn't help us decorate, and she didn't assist with the guest list. However, we soon found out that she was telling a very different story to the rest of our family. My wife's aunt called us one day to coordinate some travel details and mentioned how generous my mom was being. We were very confused and asked what she meant, and aunt explained that my mom had been calling everyone claiming she was single-handedly funding the entire wedding. My mother was telling people she was the one who came up with the idea to have it on the boat and that she was spending all her free time coordinating the food and music. It was a complete lie. She just wanted all the praise and attention for a wedding she was actively complaining about behind closed doors. We corrected the aunt, but we decided to just ignore my mom's delusions to keep the peace until the wedding was over, and then the big day finally arrived. The boat was docked at the marina, decorated beautifully with lights and flowers, and the weather was perfect. Everything was going smoothly until my mom showed up. She walked down the dock wearing a floor-length, heavily beaded ivory dress. It was essentially a wedding dress. My wife saw her and just shook her head, choosing to ignore it rather than let it ruin her mood. And by the way, guys, if your mom showed up at your wedding like this, what would you have done? Let me know in the comments. I'm really curious about your reaction. Anyway, as soon as my mom stepped onto the boat, the demands already started. She marched right up to my buddy, who was helping me set up the buffet trays on the lower deck. "I need a glass of sparkling water with exactly 3 ice cubes, and I need you to hold my purse," she barked at him, and my buddy looked confused, politely explaining he was just a groomsman trying to prep the food. My mom scoffed loudly and complained about the terrible service to anyone who would listen to her. I had to pull her aside. "Leave my friends alone," I told her quietly. "They are helping out as a favor." "I'm the mother of the groom," she snapped back. "People should be catering to my needs. This was a very stressful day for me." I told her to sit down and be quiet, or else I would leave her on the dock. She huffed and stomped over to a bench on the boat, glaring at my wife's family. The boat left the marina and we headed out to a quiet cove for the ceremony, and the setting was gorgeous. And guys, I gotta say, I really hope that Karen gets thrown overboard or something. But don't get my hopes up. The music started on the PA speaker and my wife walked down the small aisle we had cleared. It was the happiest moment of my life, but my mom could not stand that the attention was not on her. Right as we began to say our vows, my mom started to cry. It was not a quiet emotional tear, it was a loud theatrical wailing. She was sobbing and blowing her nose violently into a napkin, ensuring that every single person turned to look at her. The officiant actually had to pause because my mom was making so much noise. My best man glared at her and handed her a tissue, whispering for her to keep it down. She shot him a nasty look but finally quieted to a loud sniffle. We managed to finish the vows and share our first kiss as a married couple. The reception started immediately after. We had drinks, food and music playing on the deck, and I thought the worst was over, but my mom was just getting started. She complained about the drop of barbecue food loudly, stating the chicken was too dry and the sides were too plain. She cornered several of my wife's relatives, loudly bragging about how much money she had spent fixing up the boat and paying for the entire event. I've had to step in multiple times to pull her away and apologize to our guests. And then came the speeches. My best man gave a great funny speech. My wife's sister gave a beautiful toast. We didn't ask my mom to speak. We had a wireless microphone connected to the PA system for the ceremony vows and a couple of quick toasts. I had left it sitting on top of the drink cooler, and when I wasn't looking, my mom rushed over and grabbed it. She tapped it loudly, causing a horrible screeching feedback noise that made everyone cover their ears. "Excuse me," she announced, her voice booming over the speakers. "I have a few words to say." A heavy, awkward silence fell over the 25 people on the boat. My wife squeezed my hand, bracing for impact. "Today's a very emotional day for me," my mom started, making sure to stand dead center on the deck. "It is so hard to watch my son get married. I sacrificed my entire life for him. I gave up my youth to raise him. I went without so he could have everything." She paused, expecting applause, but nobody clapped for her. "People don't realize how hard it is to be a mom," she continued, her voice taking on a bitter tone. "And kids these days are so ungrateful. I spent months planning this beautiful wedding. I coordinated the boat, I organized the food, and I made sure today was perfect. And it hurts, it really hurts that my own son has not even thanked me publicly today." People were staring at her in absolute shock. My brother let out a short, uncomfortable laugh because the situation was just so absurd. My mother heard the laugh and completely lost her mind. "You think this is funny, huh?" she shrieked into the microphone, pointing directly at him. "You think my pain is a joke? I paid for this. I made this happen. This family has shown me nothing but disrespect." I heard enough. I walked over, grabbed the microphone out of her hand and switched the power button off. "That is enough," I said firmly. "Don't silence me," she screamed, her face turning bright red. "I'm your mother." She threw her hands up in a dramatic gesture and managed to knock over a small folding table next to her. A stack of plastic cups and a pitcher of water crashed onto the deck. Water went everywhere. Guests jumped back to avoid the mess. The music was off and the only sound was the humming of the boat's engine and my mother's heavy breathing. She had officially ruined the vibe already. The wedding was at a complete standstill and I was boiling with rage. I grabbed my mom by the arm and marched her down to the enclosed lower deck area away from the guests, saying, "What is wrong with you?" I demanded once we were out of earshot. "You're acting like a lunatic. You just destroyed my wedding reception." "I destroyed it?" she yelled back. "You ruined my moment. You humiliated me in front of all those people. You made me look like a fool." "You made yourself look like a fool," I replied. "You lied to everyone. You didn't pay a single thing today." "You did not plan anything. All you have done is complain, throw a tantrum, and embarrass me." She crossed her arms and glared at me with absolute hatred. "You're the most ungrateful child on the planet," she spat. "After everything I endured to raise you, you owe me your life. You owe me everything you have." "I owe you nothing," I told her. "You chose to be a parent. That doesn't give you a free pass to treat me like garbage for the rest of my life." And then she said the most insane entitled thing I've ever heard in my entire life. "Since you want to act like you owe me nothing," she said, raising her chin, "I'm going to need compensation for my time and my emotional distress today. I want this boat." I stared at her completely stunned. "Excuse me?" "You heard me," she said confidently, as if she were making a perfectly reasonable business transaction. "I planned this wedding and I raised you. I put up with your terrible attitude for years, and I'm getting older and I deserve something nice. You're gonna sign the title of this boat over to me by next week. It's the absolute least you can do to repay your debts to me." I honestly thought I was hallucinating. She seriously believed that because she threw a massive tantrum and lied about planning a wedding, she was entitled to a very expensive piece of property that I bought and rebuilt with my own money. "Are you out of your mind?" I laughed out loud. It was not a happy laugh, it was a laugh of pure disbelief. "You're not getting my boat. You're not getting a single dime from me ever again." "If you don't give me this boat, I will tell everyone how you abuse your mom," she threatened, stepping closer to me. "I will tell the whole family that you stole the wedding plans from me and kicked me to the curb." I stopped laughing. The anger I'd been suppressing for my entire childhood finally boiled over. "Go ahead," I said, my voice cold and steady. "Tell them whatever you want. Anyone who believes your lies is not someone I want in my life anyway." I turned around and walked back up to the upper deck. I went straight to the captain's console, where my buddy was steering the boat. "Turn us around," I told him. "Take us back to the marina." My buddy nodded and swung the boat around. The guests were murmuring amongst themselves, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. My wife came over and put her arm around me. I explained what just happened and she looked absolutely horrified. "We are kicking her off," I told my wife. "I'm so sorry she did this." "Don't apologize," my wife said, squeezing my hand. "Just get her out of here." It took about 20 minutes to get back to the docks. My mom stayed on the lower deck the entire time, probably assuming I was taking time to think about her absurd demand. When she felt the boat bump against the dock, she came walking up the stairs with a smug look on her face. "Have you decided to be reasonable?" she asked me. I walked over to the side gate of the boat, unlatched it and pushed it open to the dock. "Get off my boat," I told her loudly, making sure every guest heard me. Her smug look vanished. "What?" "You heard me. Get off my boat and get out of my life. You're a toxic, manipulative person and I'm done with you. Your behavior today was disgusting. You tried to ruin my past relationships, you abused me my whole life, and now you try to ruin my wedding. I'm not playing your games anymore. Get off." She looked around the deck expecting someone to jump to her defense, but everyone just stared at her in silence. Even the relatives she had been trying to impress earlier were looking at her with pure disgust. "You cannot do this to me," she started to cry, trying to play the victim one last time. "I'm your mother. If you don't walk off this boat right now, I'm calling the marina security to drag you off for trespassing," I said, pulling my phone out of my pocket. She realized then and there that I was completely serious and the tears stopped instantly. She picked up her purse, adjusted her ridiculous white dress and marched towards the exit. As she stepped into the dock, she turned back and yelled, "You're dead to me. Don't ever ask for anything again." "That is the best wedding gift you could have possibly given me," I replied. I closed the gate and latched it, and I told my buddy to take us back out. As we pulled away from the dock, I watched her standing there all alone in her white dress, looking absolutely miserable. We turned the PA system back on and my friends quickly cleaned up the spilled water and a massive weight completely lifted off my shoulders. The rest of the wedding reception was fantastic. We danced, we laughed, and we celebrated without a dark cloud hanging over us. The next few days were exactly what I expected though. My mom went on a massive smear campaign against me. She called every single aunt, every cousin in our family tree, and she posted long dramatic status updates online claiming she was brutally thrown off a boat and abandoned by her cruel son. She told everyone that she paid for the wedding and that my wife and I scammed her out of money. My phone blew up with messages from relatives telling me I needed to apologize and that family is family. I didn't argue with them, I simply sent a mass message to everyone involved. I explained exactly what happened, how she demanded my boat as compensation and how she threw a tantrum. I told them I was going strictly no contact with my mom and that anyone who wanted to take her side was welcome to join her in the blocked contacts list. A lot of the family realized she was lying, especially the ones who were actually at the wedding and saw her meltdown firsthand. A few of the more stubborn relatives decided to side with her, so I threw them in the trash right along with her and blocked their numbers without a second thought. It has been years since that day, and I've stayed completely true to my word. I have not spoken a single word to my mom since I kicked her off my boat, and yeah, I went no contact and left her to her misery. That is what she deserved. From what I understand through extended family members, she is absolutely miserable. She alienated most of her friends with her constant complaining and victim mentality, and she sits alone in her house blaming the world for her problems, completely unwilling to accept that she is the architect of her own isolation. As for me and my wife, we are doing incredibly well. Our marriage is strong and built on trust and actual communication. And yeah guys, if you ask me about my opinion here, I would say she did not view you as a son, she simply viewed you as an accessory. You warned her about boundaries and she crossed them in the craziest way possible, and she did face the consequences. Kicking her off the boat was not an overreaction if you ask me, it was simply self-defense. However, if you would have been in OP's shoes, what would you have done here? Let me know in the comments. And a Reddit user in the comments said, obviously your mom is a textbook narcissist and her behavior was completely unacceptable, but OP, what did you honestly expect to happen here? You knew exactly what she did to your previous partners, you knew that she was toxic and actively trying to sabotage your life, and yet you decided to invite her to your wedding on a small boat. You basically created a high-pressure drama cooker. And another Reddit comment said, it is wild how some people think basic parenting duties are a high-interest loan that needs to be paid back by the child. She wanted to show off her son's boat to her friends and realized that she couldn't control him or the asset and tried to then legally seize the property under the guise of emotional distress. The entitlement of showing up in a wedding dress and then demanding the venue as a party favor is peak delusion. I'm glad that you did not fold to the family pressure. And the next one is a funny story from r/petty revenge and is titled Got Revenge? And They Will Never Know. So this is from many years ago when I was a retail sales guy in a jewelry store in a shopping mall. Really happened, a favorite memory. Our assistant manager, let's just call him Jerry, sold a fancy crystal decanter set to a couple who was gonna give it as a wedding gift. I was within earshot at the time during most of the transaction, which took a long time and featured the husband being a jerk to Jerry the whole time, condescending, demanding, demeaning, the whole works, you know. Well, Jerry was a total professional, kept his cool, remained cheerful and obliging through all the abuse. At the end of the transaction, he asked if they would like complimentary gift wrapping. The customer agreed, Jerry took the box into the back room and did a spectacular wrapping job. Went all out with luxury ribbon, silver metallic textured paper, the works. Customer left, Jerry smiled and waved goodbye, and when they were gone he was still smiling and I asked why he was so cheerful after that experience. Jerry said, "Oh, it's fine," and held up the price tag gun and smiled. The decanter set had cost around $150. This was 1978, so maybe $500 in today's dollars. While in the back room wrapping the gift, Jerry had removed the original price tag, there was one price for the whole set, and then stuck new ones on the bottoms of each piece, something like $17.77 on the decanter and $3.77 on each glass, and then wrapped them all nice and pretty. He said, "And the beauty of it is, they will never know," and gave a satisfied laugh. And yeah guys, that is how you make an a-hole look like a cheap a-hole. Absolutely brilliant petty revenge. I hope you enjoyed the video and I will see you again tomorrow.